Xieji suspended his body in midair, trying to find a way to break through Tsukuyami's ghost god and kill her true form. But suddenly, he saw a terrifying sight. The ghost god, already filled with murderous intent, became even larger and more terrifying in the rolling fog. Thick black smoke rose into the sky, completely enveloping the ghost god. Xieji's eyes slowly widened, and his pupils shrank to the size of mung beans in fear. In front of the ghost god slayer, Tsukuyami's eyes also became dark, cold, and evil. "No one can see you now. You can die." At the command center, it took several minutes for the lost communication to be restored. When they connected the video, they found that the scene in front of them had flipped 90 degrees. There were only two possibilities for this angle: either the equipment had fallen, or Xieji's men had fallen to the ground. Li Tianyang's heart tightened, and he hurriedly lay down on the command console and shouted, "Xieji, Xieji! What's the situation?" But he didn't get any response. Could it be? Could Captain Xieji be dead? Cold sweat dripped from an officer's forehead. It was only a few minutes between when they disappeared from view and when the connection was re-established. They didn't know what had happened in between. However, when the smart devices inside their combat uniforms fell off and they were unable to contact anyone, it was highly likely that something extremely bad had happened. Li Tianyang gritted his teeth, his face extremely gloomy. "Xieji, Xieji, answer me." Finally, there was a response on the camera. A pair of feet wearing wooden clogs appeared in front of the camera. They were a pair of very petite feet, wrapped in white cotton socks, and a red skirt could be seen on the calves. As if hearing the sound from the communication device, one foot slowly lifted up and stepped on the camera lens. At the combat command center, they saw a small foot wearing white cotton socks stepping on their faces. Crack! The camera cracked, but it was military equipment and was strong enough to withstand the impact. However, the kick pushed the equipment into the mud, completely blocking their view. "That's Tsukuyami's foot," an officer muttered, his voice bitter as he swallowed hard. Everyone looked at Li Tianyang. The outcome of the battle was obvious. Xieji was now in a dire situation. Li Tianyang angrily punched the command console. Impossible. With Xieji's abilities, even if he couldn't defeat his opponent, he couldn't have been killed so quickly. Tsukuyami's abilities are definitely not enough to do that. With his ability to harmonize all things, Xieji had first-class survival skills. Even if he encountered an opponent stronger than him, he could quickly target the opponent's abilities and optimize his own abilities. Everyone knew that in a battle between mutants, the relationship between abilities was particularly important. Therefore, even if Xieji couldn't beat someone, it was still easy for him to escape. Unless he encountered someone who was much stronger than him. Then he would be slashed to death before he even had a chance to use his abilities. But was Neon's Tsukuyami really that powerful? Li Tianyang's eyes were filled with hatred. Neon cannot have such a powerful existence. She must have used something we don't know about. At this moment, Sidujin spoke slowly. "The people of Neon are the most cunning and deceitful. Since ancient times, they have followed the principle of the strong ruling the weak, and they are always thinking about becoming the ruler. These guys probably won't reveal their true strength so easily." He said meaningfully, "Do you guys really understand the strength of these people?" This sentence served as a wake-up call for everyone in the East Sea region. Since the end of the world, their only real opponent had been the Columbia Navy. They didn't even consider countries like Neon and Scylla to be threats. This was because the East Sea region was indeed very powerful, with a large amount of weapons and equipment, excellent troops, and top-notch mutants. Neon, a country that had been under military control for a century, did not have any decent armed forces. However, that didn't mean that they didn't have powerful mutants. Li Tianyang's expression was grim. When Li Long died earlier, he had been gloating and looked down on the Jiangnan region. But now, their captain had also died. To be fair, life and death were commonplace on the battlefield. But it was definitely painful to lose a fleet captain who had been trained at great expense by his own region. After a long silence, Li Tianyang said, Update the information on Tsukuyami immediately and mark her ability index as unknown. Notify all mutants on the island to watch out for this person. Shieji's death was a wake-up call for everyone. Only on the battlefield can one see the true potential of a person or a force. Those who were praised to the skies before the battle may not have much power on the battlefield. On the other hand, some people who had been hiding their abilities would reveal their sharp claws and fangs, surprising everyone. Take Zhang Yi and Tsukuyami, for example. You never know how strong your next opponent will be. Don't be blinded by appearances, and don't underestimate any opponent. While everyone on their side was cautiously moving forward, trying to find the source of God, a special team also appeared in the vicinity of Mist Valley. Not affiliated with any country, the members of the Sky Dragon Pirates, who roamed the Starry Sea, also joined the battle for the source of God. The Sky Dragon King was one of the first to receive the information. It could even be said that he arrived at Star Island earlier than the other factions. However, the information he obtained was clearly inferior to that of the other major forces. He could only determine that the source of God was located on Star Island. Therefore, he organized his elite men and boarded this island nation. There was no shortage of talented individuals among the pirates. After analyzing and exploring the strange poisonous mist, they arrived at the edge of Mist Valley. As the poisonous circle shrank, the probability of different teams encountering each other increased. The Sky Dragon King brought all of his mutants who were capable of fighting with him on this trip in order to obtain the source of God and revive the prestige of the Sky Dragon Pirates. Among them were his deputy captain, Bai Lian, and the 4 surviving captains of his fleet. The Sky Dragon King brought them to the edge of Mist Valley. It was a desolate wasteland, surrounded by dead trees frozen into ice sculptures and large piles of rocks. The Sky Dragon King stood at the front of the team, looking at the thicker poisonous mist ahead, a look of excitement in his eyes. I think I can feel a powerful force there. Hearing the Sky Dragon King say this, Deputy Captain Bai Lian immediately bowed and flattered him, saying, "Congratulations, Lord Sky Dragon King. As long as you obtain the source of God, you will definitely be promoted to the rank of Epsilon. When that time comes, even the Huashu Kingdom and Columbia will have to treat you with respect. From then on, the Sky Dragon Pirates will be able to roam freely in the East Sea region." Several captains also began to flatter the Sky Dragon King. "When that time comes, we'll make sure that those guys in the Jiangnan region can never go to sea again. Let them see who really controls the East Sea. And we must also hand over the murderers who killed Nerit and the others." A smile appeared on the corner of the Sky Dragon King's mouth. It was impossible to make the Jiangnan region hand over Zhang Yi. He didn't dare to be so arrogant. But at least after he becomes an Epsilon, the Huashu Kingdom would no longer be able to send a small fleet to scare him into hiding in his bunker like before. "I will get the source of God." The Sky Dragon King clenched his huge fist and said in a deep voice. When they started to move forward, preparing to enter the depths of Mist Valley. In an area ahead, a dark green poisonous mist so thick that it was almost opaque began to stir strangely. After the Sky Dragon Pirates entered the area ahead. Suddenly, one after another, dark green figures emerged from the depths of the thick poisonous mist. They were all dressed in blackish green clothes, wearing gas masks on their heads, but their hands and feet were exposed, a terrifying blackish purple color. In particular, their fingernails were 3 to 4 centimeters long and dark purple. They were like ghosts, surrounding the Sky Dragon Pirates from the depths of the poisonous mist. At first, Sky Dragon King and the others didn't notice anything. By the time they realized that the poisonous mist around them was fluctuating strangely, they had already been completely surrounded by those strange people. "Stop! There's an ambush. Don't make any sudden moves." The Sky Dragon King raised his right hand to signal everyone to stop. All the crew members immediately took up fighting stances. But those strange people didn't stop and continued to approach them. When the pirate crew noticed them, they were already within 20 meters of them. Even with the naked eye, they could vaguely see the extent of the poisonous mist's fluctuations. This made everyone's hearts sink. To be able to get so close without them noticing, the strength of these people must be extraordinary. Deputy Captain Bai Lian opened a beautiful iron fan in his hand and scanned the strange people around him warily. They looked like walking corpses, without even a sense of existence. But for some reason, seeing them always evoked the deepest fear in people's hearts. Who are these guys? Among the major teams participating in the island invasion, very few were operating in large groups. Even in the mutant teams, anyone below the deputy captain would almost certainly be cannon fodder in an encounter battle. As a result, many captains decided to act alone. Unless they had a deputy with special abilities, they wouldn't even bring their deputies with them. But these strange people were shadowy figures, and there were hundreds of them. Just as they were about to attack, the same voice came from all of the hundreds of strange people. Sky Dragon Pirates, the gang led by Li Fengxian. This is not a place you should be near. Leave immediately. Otherwise, you will be punished by the Columbia Navy. Listen carefully, this is the last time, leave here immediately. The voice came from all directions, echoing in everyone's ears. The Sky Dragon King frowned. It's the members of Hell's Lock. Are these clones? Then his real body must be nearby. Bai Lian looked at the Sky Dragon King. Lord Sky Dragon King, are we going to fight the Columbia Navy? The Sky Dragon King's gaze became extremely gloomy. It took so much effort to find this place, there was no way he could let them leave now. If he couldn't obtain the source of God and further increase his strength, then he would only become an eel in the East Sea in the future. He would be like those monsters hidden in the depths of the sea, without eyes. He would never be able to soar through the sky, roam the seas, and be a powerful and fearless dragon. But right now, if they went to war with the people in front of them, it would be tantamount to breaking ties with the Columbia Navy. The result would still be death. He was afraid that they wouldn't even be able to leave Star Island. The Sky Dragon King thought long and hard, then suddenly said loudly, I am Li Fengxian, captain of the Sky Dragon Pirates. I wonder which member of Hell's Lock has come here. We, the Sky Dragon Pirates, have always been on friendly terms with the Columbia Navy and have never offended you. We also agree with your position on the blockade of the Huashu Kingdom. Therefore, we are not enemies. Deep in the poisonous fog was a strange man dressed in dark green combat uniform and wearing a gas mask. He was a member of Hell's Lock, codenamed Hell Horse, also known as Hershiser. His ability index was 9,600 points. His ability index was lower than Vito Bardia's. However, in Mist Valley, which was filled with poisonous mist, his abilities were even more effective than Bardia's. At this moment, Hershiser was hiding deep within the poisonous mist. This is a natural barrier for him. He calmly reported the situation here to General Horn at the command center. I encountered the enemy at the edge of Mist Valley. It's the pirates from the Southeast Sea. General Horn was very surprised to hear this. Pirates? All the officers in the command center found this extremely ridiculous. This battle was a war between several major countries in the ocean region. Although the number of people involved was not large, they represented the top fighting forces of their respective regions. Not to mention that behind them stood the Sky Dragon Pirates, a force that no one dared to provoke. Are these pirates crazy? How dare they come and cause trouble at a time like this? Horn's eyes were filled with murderous intent. McGrady asked from the side, should we go to war with them? But the Sky Dragon Pirates are indeed quite powerful. And we only have Hershiser there. Sky Dragon King Li Fengxian had an ability index of 9,800, which was no secret. However, General Horn didn't hesitate at all. He placed both hands on the command platform and said in a decisive tone, Hershiser, kill them. The battlefield was cruel, and any possible threat must be eliminated. As for whether Hershiser could take care of the Sky Dragon Pirates, their ability index is 9,800, and they have more than a dozen elite pirates following them. Hershiser's ability index is only 9,600. Horn recited the data provided by the intelligence department, but a cruel and confident smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. So, the advantage is mine. After receiving Horn's order, Hershiser replied coldly, "Got it." At the same time, the strange men surrounding the Sky Dragon pirates all walked forward. "Put down your weapons, put your hands on your heads, and I'll spare your lives." The strange people surrounded them like a wall of poisonous mist. At this moment, the Sky Dragon pirates had no idea what their opponents were capable of. If they attacked, it would be tantamount to breaking ties with the Columbia Navy. But it was clearly impossible to let them be bound without a fight. The Sky Dragon King quickly made a decision: kill them. He roared, and his clothes instantly burst open. His strong muscles bulged, and then a layer of black iron-like luster appeared. He quickly transformed into his mutant beast form, the Diamond Armor Dragon. "If you want war, then I'll give you war," the Sky Dragon King roared. The pirates around him also laughed loudly and unleashed all kinds of supernatural abilities, fighting fiercely with those strange soldiers. Hundreds of soldiers rushed over, with a dozen soldiers surrounding each person, and a fierce battle began. These soldiers were extremely skilled in combat and struck with great force. Especially when their limbs collided, it felt like hitting cold steel. The Sky Dragon King transformed into a giant dragon hundreds of meters long and circled in midair, coldly surveying his surroundings. The fog was too thick for him to see where the strange soldiers were being controlled from. Vajra body. The Sky Dragon King's huge body circled around with great force, and the enormous power directly swept hundreds of soldiers away. Dragon flame. He opened his blood-red mouth and spat out a surging black flame, 100 meters long, which began to burn the poisonous mist around him. The poisonous mist quickly burned away when it encountered the extremely high temperature of the flames. Seeing this, the members of the pirate crew shouted excitedly, "Lord Sky Dragon King is mighty! Lord Sky Dragon King is mighty!" However, Sky Dragon King and Bai Lian did not feel the slightest bit of relief. They were too familiar with the Columbia Navy, who were the true rulers of the ocean region. If they weren't completely confident, they wouldn't have started a war so easily. Even the Huashu Kingdom, which was in a state of war with Columbia, had to admit that Columbia was evil, but it couldn't be said that Columbia was weak. They couldn't believe that they had been able to strike such a blow against their enemy so easily. Sure enough, while their subordinates were still cheering, suddenly, one of the pirates felt an itch on his arm. He raised his arm and looked at it, and what he saw made his face turn pale in an instant. The counterfeit combat uniform on his arm had been corroded into 7 or 8 large holes, and the flesh inside was turning white at a visible speed, then turning dark green, and then quickly turning black. Soon, his flesh rotted away, and the intense pain caused him to let out a miserable cry. "Ah!" The Sky Dragon King and Bai Lian looked at him, but soon, they weren't the only ones crying out in pain. Almost half of the team had the same symptoms. Large areas of corrosion and decay appeared on their bodies, and soon their bones were visible, with the damage continuing to spread. "It's poison!" Cold sweat ran down Bai Lian's forehead. "Everyone who came into contact with those soldiers has been poisoned." Some of the pirates couldn't take it anymore and pulled out their swords to cut off the corroded flesh from their arms, stomachs, and thighs. Those who acted quickly were still okay, but some of the injuries were too severe to be cut off completely. Moreover, in such a cold environment filled with poisonous fumes, cutting off limbs and exposing large areas of wounds was a death sentence. The worst part was that the Sky Dragon pirates had no information about their secret enemy. However, all of their information had already been transmitted to Hershiser's data system. In the poisonous mist, Hershiser was as cold as a machine. He suddenly reached out and lifted the bottom of his gas mask, revealing his lower jaw. It was half a rotten and creepy face with white teeth exposed, and even his lips were gone. But he opened his demonic mouth and took a deep breath of the dark green, terrifying miasma. Hellhorse Hershiser is a god of plague in Norse mythology. Hershiser is aptly named, as his ability is poison, the most terrifying of poisons. His ability is called Plague Spread. He himself was a huge source of disease. Moreover, he could devour all the toxins in the world and turn them into his own power. Therefore, when he appeared on the battlefield in Mist Valley, his abilities were greatly enhanced. This was why General Horn was convinced that he alone could wipe out the entire Sky Dragon pirates. Sometimes, ability index is just a number. In their eyes, the poor pirates were nothing more than a bunch of beggars at sea. They had no advanced weapons or equipment, nor did they have a strong intelligence system. With such a huge gap in strength, he didn't know how Hershiser could possibly lose. Hershiser absorbed the thick poisonous mist around him. Soon, the refined toxins were excreted from his pores and emitted into the surrounding area through the exhaust vents of his specially designed combat suit. In no time, his body was surrounded by a disgusting toxic gas that could easily poison a whale. The toxic gas quickly condensed and took the form of figures identical to him. The Disaster Legion. As long as he was on this land, he could continuously obtain the purest toxins and summon an unlimited number of these soldiers of disaster. They were already powerful fighters. The most terrifying thing was that their entire bodies were covered in deadly toxins. With the Sky Dragon pirates' poor equipment, they couldn't block the corrosion. Just one hit was almost certain death. The Sky Dragon pirates had not even seen their enemy when they suffered casualties. Those who were poisoned suffered pain that pierced their bones, and even though they knew they would not survive, they cut off the corroded parts of their bodies. However, even after cutting them off, they quickly died. The Sky Dragon King was enraged, and he let out an angry dragon roar. A black supernatural light shone around him, and after a moment, another diamond-armored dragon identical to him appeared from the black light. The ability to split into two, Mirage Dragon. The two giant dragons stood back to back, their long bodies reaching forward, then spewed out a long, thin black flame. The flame was nearly a kilometer long and instantly burned the poisonous mist and the soldiers of disaster before their eyes to ashes. The two dragons spun around, and in less than 10 seconds, they cleared a blank area with a radius of 1 kilometer with themselves as the center. The Sky Dragon King transformed into two dragons and burned away the poisonous mist and the poisonous disaster soldiers with super high-temperature dragon flames. This gave the pirate crew some time to catch their breath. However, before long, the poisonous mist rushed back again. This was Mist Valley, the center of the poisonous mist. Any gap that appeared would quickly be filled. Unless he could clear all the poisonous mist from Star Island, there was no way to resolve this crisis. Moreover, hidden beneath the poisonous mist, the second batch of soldiers of disaster appeared, surrounding them like zombies. The Sky Dragon King's heart sank. For him, escaping from here was not a problem at all. But once he left, his subordinates would be unable to withstand the endless attacks. Deputy Captain Bai Lian saw the Sky Dragon King's predicament. He also knew that in order to break the deadlock, they had to find the mutants hiding in the shadows. So he said to the Sky Dragon King, "Lord Sky Dragon King, you go find the mutants in the shadows. We'll hold them off here." The Sky Dragon King looked at his deputy and knew in his heart that this was the right thing to do. Just at that moment, a large group of soldiers of disaster approached like a wall, numb and unresponsive. They issued cold warnings. "Sky Dragon pirates, you are surrounded. Give up your resistance immediately and surrender, or we will kill you all. All members of Hell's Lock are here. Don't resist in vain." These words made the pirates even more desperate. Due to the absolute imbalance in information, they had no idea who their enemies were. They had no idea how many enemies were lurking in the shadows. If there were multiple members of Hell's Lock here, then aside from the Sky Dragon King and Deputy Captain Bai Lian, the others would be powerless to resist and would have no choice but to wait for death. But the Sky Dragon King was not so easily fooled. Someone who could become the Pirate King was bound to be more courageous and intelligent than the average person, with the exception of a certain Lu family member. Therefore, upon hearing Hershiser's warning, he smiled coldly and said loudly, "If there really were so many members of Hell's Lock here, you wouldn't be playing tricks like this." With that, he looked up at the sky and let out a long cry, and a black pillar of light shot straight into the sky. Soon after, thick clouds began to gather around the black pillar of light. The clouds in the sky were grayish-white, and snow was already falling heavily. As the episode progressed, they quickly turned into thick, black clouds. Crackle! Huge hailstones fell from the clouds, covering an area of nearly 10 kilometers around. The two dragons, which were the incarnations of the Sky Dragon King, began to spew high-temperature flames at their surroundings. The temperature in the surrounding area rose rapidly, and the hailstones began to melt before they even hit the ground, turning into rain. Splash! It was a magical sight to see rain falling in the bitter cold of winter. One of the Sky Dragon King's abilities was to summon rain. Rain poured down from the sky like a deluge. The thick poisonous mist particles were enveloped by the rain and quickly diluted. The surrounding view became clearer and clearer. Hershiser, hiding deep in the poisonous mist, looked up at the sky and muttered, "I haven't seen rain in a long time." His figure was finally spotted by the Sky Dragon King. The Sky Dragon King glared at the guy wearing a gas mask in the distance, let out a deafening dragon roar, and the two dragons circled and flew high into the sky. Summon thunder and lightning. Thunder rumbled in the cumulonimbus clouds, and one after another, huge spherical lightning bolts fell toward Hershiser, seemingly slowly but actually very quickly. But Hershiser was unhurried. He spread his arms wide and enjoyed the rain mixed with poisonous mist washing over his body. What a wonderful rain! His hands slowly dropped, and then a powerful suction appeared between his arms. The dark green poison on the ground gurgled and flowed into his arms. He casually waved his right hand forward, and a dark green poison mixed with his fishy supernatural power turned into a hemispherical barrier in front of him. Spherical lightning bolts fell one after another, hitting the dark green barrier with a continuous crackling sound. The poisonous liquid was constantly evaporated by the thunder, but Hershiser could replenish it from the pool of poisonous liquid at his feet. Standing on this battlefield, he could make the most of his abilities. The Sky Dragon King watched from afar, but did not dare to approach rashly. Because his opponent was covered in poison, if he fought him at close range, it would likely pose a huge threat to himself. However, if he didn't make a move, Hershiser wouldn't give him time to catch his breath. He crossed his hands in front of him, and a large amount of poisonous liquid began to bubble as if it were boiling. These bubbles quickly expanded and became as tall as a person. Then, one after another, a group of soldiers of disaster covered in slime emerged from the green bubbles. "Kill them!" Hershiser coldly gave the order. A large number of soldiers of disaster began to attack the pirates. Hershiser himself took a long military dagger from his tactical backpack, which glowed a faint green. Needless to say, it was coated with a deadly poison. It was likely that anyone who touched it would immediately rot away. He stared at the Sky Dragon King, his eyes devoid of emotion. According to intelligence, the Sky Dragon King's strongest ability was close combat. Although Hershiser was not confident that he could defeat him in close combat, he had a way to deal with him. But he had a way to sprinkle the poison on the Sky Dragon King. No matter how strong his body was, once contaminated by the poison, he would cry out in pain and beg for mercy. The Sky Dragon King and Bai Lian below exchanged glances. Bai Lian gave him a look and nodded silently. That meant he would leave this to him. The Sky Dragon King didn't hesitate and instantly rushed towards Hershiser. The first to rush forward was, of course, his Mirage Dragon clone. He wanted to see how much damage this poisonous enemy could do to him. Soldiers of disaster continuously emerged from the poisonous liquid and rushed towards the pirates on the ground. Bai Lian's eyes were cold as he swung the iron fan in his hand with force. "Dance, Frost Bai Lian." The iron fan swept elegantly around him, and a blizzard mixed with ice and snow instantly formed around him, sweeping away the soldiers of disaster rushing in from all directions. Those bodies formed from poisonous liquid were slowly frozen into ice sculptures before they could even get close. On the ground, it was like a huge white snow lotus flower had bloomed. Hundreds of disaster soldiers were sealed inside. On the main battlefield, the battle between Hershiser and the Sky Dragon King was the source of the conflict. Facing the attack of the Sea Dragon's clone, Hershiser's gas mask suddenly cracked open. He opened his white teeth and spat out a stream of black mucus. As soon as the mucus appeared, it attracted the surrounding poisonous liquid like a whirlpool, and in just a short time, it turned into a hideous and ferocious three-legged hell horse.